Today we're going to be talking about rates and tables and how they relate to equivalent fractions and finding the unit rate. First, I want you to look at the picture. It represents two equivalent fractions. What are some patterns you notice between the two numbers? Example, how do we get from 8 to 16? 4 to 8. Think about that for a moment. Well, how do you get from 8 to 16? The process is times 2. How do you get from 4 to 8? The process is times 2. Now, how do I know they're equivalent? Because I can do the same to the top as I do to the bottom, and I get an equivalent fraction. 4 times 2 does equal 8. 8 times 2 does equal 16, so they are equivalent. You can't have two different numbers. You can't have times 2 at the top and times 3 at the bottom. That's not how it works. Another way to check and see if an equation is equivalent is to cross multiply. You may have learned this from your other teacher. And that's when you multiply across to see if they're equal, if you get the same answer. So 8 times 8 is 64. 16 times 4 is 64. Now you know they're equivalent because they both equal 64. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to use a table to create equivalent ratios and rates, and you will be able to explain how you created the equivalent rates. Draw and label this table on your paper. This is called LFPA. It reminds you to label the unit. Facts is the numbers. Process is do I multiply or divide? And of course the answer. What answer am I trying to get? So take a moment and copy that on your paper. Now we are going to use this to solve some problems for almonds and raisins. For every 7 almonds, there are 5 raisins. So we draw our table, and remember the first one is to label. What does that mean? We label the unit. This is almonds, and then this is raisins. Okay? And then we put the information that we know. So we have 7, for every 7 almonds, there are 5 raisins. And then we go to the next line. What we want to know is if there are 28 almonds, how many raisins are there? Well, this next line, forgot to put the F here, the facts we have are that we have 7 to 5. Okay? Then the next letter is P, the process. We don't know the process yet until we put in what we're looking for, which is this right here. What information do we know? We have 28 almonds. So almonds A, 28 goes on the top. What we don't know is the raisins, and that's what we're trying to figure out. So what we do is we say, what is the process to get from 7 to 28? Okay, times 4. And whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. So what is 5 times 4? 20. And now we know we have 20 raisins. Okay, now we're going to do that again for the next one, but this time we have the raisins and not the almonds. Okay, we're still going to start with 7 and 5 because that's what we know. Okay, and so we're trying to find the raisins. So raisins goes on the bottom, so it's going to go over here. We leave that middle column open to show our work. All right, so now it's easy. How do we get from 5 to 10? Times 2. And whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. 7 times 2 is 14. Now we know how many almonds we have. For every 14 almonds, we have 10. Okay, and we're going to keep doing that with the rest of these problems. Now, we will have some decimals and some things that where you're going to have to do more than just simple math, but it's still the same process. How did they figure that out? Divide by 2. What would you tell them to do right here? What would you tell them to do right here? Oh, sorry. Now this one is a little tricky because you would have to, you're going from a whole number to a decimal. So in order to find out how you went from 7 to 3.5, it's getting smaller, so you know it's going to be division. Okay, but how do we figure that out? Well, what we're going to do is, let me make some room, is we're going to divide 7 by 3.5 to figure out what goes in the middle, what the process is. So 3.5 into 7. Now we know we have to move our decimal. We can't have a decimal and put a 0. So now it becomes 70 divided by 35. Okay, well, it doesn't go into there, but 35 goes into 72 times. That equals 70. Done. Now we know the process is we're going to divide both by 2. So when you divide 5 divided by 2, you're going to get 2.5, or 2 and 5 tenths. So that's what you would write here, 2 and 5 tenths. Now for the next one, we know there are 250 raisins, so that would go here. The 250 would go here. And now we're trying to figure out, for every 250 raisins, what's the ratio of almonds? So this one doesn't have any decimals, so it might be a little bit easier. So how do we get from 5 to 250? Well, I know 5 times 5 is 25. So 5 times 50 is 250. And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. All right? I know 7 times 5 is 35, but this is 7 times 50, so I have to add a 0. So the answer is 350. And now for the last one, I know there are 56 almonds, so it goes where the almonds go. And we're trying to find the raisins. So how do I get from 7 to 56? Well, that's times 8. Do the same thing top and bottom, 40. The answer is 40. And that is how you use the table to find the ratio. Now we're going to practice with another one. Lynn is paid $90 for 5 hours of work. She used a table to calculate how much she would be paid at this rate for 8 hours of work. So at this rate, how much would Lynn get paid for 2 and 5 tenths hours of work? On this one, it is easiest if you try to find the unit for 1. It's going to make the problem easier. And this is where we get to use our knowledge of how to find the unit rate for 1 by division. So you're trying to find out first, before we even begin this problem, how much money does she make for 1 hour work, 1 unit? And we know you're supposed to divide. So here we go. 90 divided by 5. This is going to give us 1 hour. I didn't really give myself enough room, but you have more room on your paper if you are showing your work. 5 goes into 9 one time. We get 4. Bring down your 0. 5 times 8 is 40. Lucky for me, I'm not going to run out of room. So, in 1 hour, she makes $18. I'm going to go ahead and put that on my chart so I don't forget. $18. Okay? So now this is going to make the problem easier to figure out how much she would get if she worked 2 and 5 hours of work. All right, so I'm going to put that on my chart. We are trying to find how much 2.5 hours of work. So we're going to draw our table. And remember, we have label, facts, process, and then answer. Okay, so our label is money to hours. What fact do we have? Well, we have our unit. She makes $18 for 1 hour. All right, and so we want to know 2.5 hours. So we put it over here. How do we get from 1 to 2.5? Well, that's easy. Times 2.5. So whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. All right, so now you have to do 18 times 2.5. I'm not going to work this out on here, so I'm just going to put the answer, but of course, if you were doing this, you'd have to work it out. You would get $45. So at this rate, how much would she get? $45. And that makes sense because for 5 hours, she gets $90. 2 and 5 hours is shorter than 5 hours. So of course, she's going to not make more than $90. She's going to make less. Now you are going to complete your cool down for rates and tables in the Google Classroom.